Hey everyone, it's Sarah with Courageous Color, and today I have a really bright painting made of warm colors and cool colors. And I'm going to explain how these colors came together on this painting. One, as a good idea, just to sort of marry the two together, the warm colors and the cool colors. And then also how it helped me to express this bad temper that I have been experiencing recently. I'll be using an 11 by 14 canvas panel and some acrylic paints, some various brands. I'm using Saks and Sargent's and some Golden. And I'm using my 16-piece brush set. And the first thing I want to do here is just put white. You saw me put white sort of on this half of my canvas. And the reason that I like to do that is so that the paint will just move and the canvas will be wet. So it helps the paint to just smoothly move with the brush. And if you're just putting your color directly on the canvas panel, it has a tendency to just be dry and sort of drag, and I just wanted it to really move well. Okay, so I'm going to start with the warm colors because they complement each other, and I had this vision of this really well-rounded shape, something like a cloud or a bubble that felt inspiring. So using this rounded shape to really inspire myself. I mentioned that I was having a really bad temper. So feeling an uncontrollable shift happening where I'm just like losing it way too fast. And I wanted to be able to express that to help myself realize what was going on. And the best way that I know how to do that is to use art. So I sat down and I wrote out a list of the emotions and the feelings that happen in that bad temper moment. And I realized that a bad temper is really a downward spiral, mentally and emotionally. And so by making this painting, I want to lift myself out of that. And I want to show that these warm colors can be awesome. They can be beautiful. They can represent something inspiring, but they can also help express some of these emotions that go along with having a bad temper and sort of flipping your lid way too soon before you had a chance to breathe and relax and think about how you really want to respond to a situation. So the warm colors, the yellow, the orange, and the red, represent things like anxiety, irritability, frustration, the anger, and just the unstable attitude that you have when you are experiencing a bad temper. And all these things happen so fast. So if you're experiencing this, you may want to write your own list of what's happening, some things that you might be anxious about or afraid of happening. It's not just about the painting, but sometimes you just have to sit down and figure out what you're feeling and then put those feelings together with some colors and be able to make some expressive art. Now I realize that this kind of looks like a rainbow right now, but that's not really what I'm painting. If you want to follow along with what I'm doing and sort of blending from lighter to darker to make a rainbow, then that's amazing, and you should totally do that. But for me, this is more of an abstract look at all the feelings that we normally just bottle up, and for me, having a creative outlet is a great way to get those out. And I am working from light to dark, so yellow and then orange and then red. And it does help, like I said, to have that white paint go down first so that it doesn't really change the color of your painting, but it does help to have that underlay of wet paint so that you can really blend and move the paint around and kind of mess with it based on how you feel. Okay, so I'm liking the way it's looking so far, but I'm feeling like it's just going from yellow right to red, and I'm going to need to add some more orange. And the good thing is all I need to do is really just wipe my paintbrush off and go right into the orange because it is closely related to red. So it's not going to make too much of a mess, which is great. You know, if I were using blue or something, I wouldn't be able to just go right into orange without changing a brush. So I'm going to make sure that I have a much better saturation here going on because I think it's important because I had this vision of this shape that I go from light to dark and that it all really blends well. So I'll need to add some yellow and white here to make sure that these values are getting lighter as it gets toward the what would be like the center of this spherical shape. Tongue twister. So I'm just going to work with a little more yellow and then white and make sure this shape looks the way that I want it to look, and sort of circle and like a bubble, and so it goes from dark to light in the middle. Okay, moving on to the second half of the painting, which is all of the cool colors that I want to use. And those are like blue and purple and green, or like tealish color. And I'm going over this section in white now, the same way I did with the first half, because I want it to be nice and slick when I start to work with the paint over top of it. And if I had did this side with the white the same as the first side with the white at the beginning, it would likely be dry or sticky by now. So that's why I waited until the warm color section was finished. Okay, so I'm going to start with the purple, and I'm making these straight lines or like rays or arrows that are moving towards something. It also kind of looks like a blooming flower, which to me represents hope and new life. And so when you have a bad temper and you are going through a situation, and maybe you react too fast, or maybe you just get angry too fast, you're very moody, you sort of just flip a switch. And later when you realize that you reacted too fast, or that you were in that bad temper and you flipped way too fast into negativity, you may want to experience something new. You may want a second chance to sort of redo that. So for me, these flower petal shapes are inspiring me in that way, and representing that new life and that hope that the next time something happens, I don't have to react that same way. And I mentioned writing down the list of feelings and emotions that were happening during the bad temper. And so some of those feelings were like moodiness and fear, weakness and envy. And so the cool colors that I'm using represent those emotions. Particularly the purple is representing the weakness and the moodiness. The green will represent jealousy or envy. And the blue is just represented by like being cold and afraid. And not cold like a temperature, because I feel like when you're raging bad temper, you're more like hot, but cold like distant. And I didn't do this intentionally, but right there through the middle, there's sort of this negative space, this white space that never ends up getting filled in. And I think sometimes our subconscious takes over and decides for us what we will do. And now looking back on it and realizing that that barrier is there, I feel like maybe that represents some sort of a shift or some sort of a change, a moment of where it stops and changes. And I find that very inspiring. And I would highly suggest that when you get done with any type of painting, especially an expressive painting, that you reflect on it and see, how was I feeling while I was painting this? And what does this mean on a deeper level? Right now I'm looking at the green and the blue that are getting mixed together, and I love that because we're not just people who feel one emotion at a time. We are people who, when we are in a bad temper or when we react too fast, we're experiencing lots of things all at once. And that's captured in this painting. You're experiencing the green and the blue together at the same time. And it really captures the way that people feel. And I'm just going to wrap this up by adding a little bit of white over top of some of the green for two reasons. One, I felt like there was kind of too much green going on in this corner and it needed one more thing. And two, to just represent inspiration and hope that no matter how dark, no matter how crazy, no matter how unstable or how downward the spiral can be, you can find hope. You can find inspiration to just do better next time. You may have a bad day or a bad moment, but that doesn't have to define your life. So I'll just flip it over and that's it. It's done. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and turn on notifications to see videos as soon as they are uploaded. Visit courageouscolor.com.